Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I'm the teacher, Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me and also your DEC.
Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are now in our 9th and final week of our 9-week course.
You know the sport questions, the ones with the pencil icon, are not for marking, but practice problems that you decide which ones are best for you to do. And the key questions with the key icon are the ones to submit for marking. So please, key questions, do all the key questions, showing all of your work, your thoughts, and your steps. This way I can really understand what it is that you understand and give you full credit for all of your work. There are 3 methods for submitting your work. The first is to scan it and send it electronically. If you have a smartphone or a smart device, you can use the iPhone Notes app or the Android Google Drive app. Both have scan functions that are fairly straightforward to use, so feel free to use that. Then you can send it to me through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger at bslatewahsa. The second method is to drop your work off into Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at 74 Front Street. We're the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Then your DEC can send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. You can connect with me through social media. My Facebook and my YouTube are both under the name bslatewahsa, so you can find me there. All of our radio Zoom classes will be uploaded or have been uploaded to YouTube, so you can find them there to rewatch or to watch for the first time if you missed a class. There are also short videos that explain common errors and confusing concepts if you would like to tap into those as well. Math is incredibly visual, so getting the full experience is by listening and watching. They go hand in hand in order to set you up for success. So please access the videos either by joining me live through Zoom or by watching the replays on YouTube. If that isn't possible, at this point, you can't really ask me to send you the videos as your work is due tomorrow, but in the future, if you'd like to, reach out and we can set you up. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. My email address is bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook, as I said, is bslatewahsa. Call me at the office at 807-737-1488, the extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. Tomorrow, June 10th, is the last day to submit work for this term. I will not be marking over the summer. I do not know if there is a person who has been hired to mark the math courses and science courses over the summer. So at this point, as far as I know, if you are working on something, hold on to your work and then re-register for the fall. But things are a little bit up in the air this year, so I'm not exactly sure what the process is. Reach out and we can try to find out if you are interested in continuing courses. Okay, so today we're reviewing Unit 4, our last unit. But let's do our last brain activation, our last mental math. I don't like 5 minutes. I don't like focusing on speed or memorization. I like deep thinking and developing strategies that you can use in various situations that empower you. So that's what we work on in our class. We're going to do 63 divided by 7 using the strategy of shared groups. So often when learning how to do division, students first start with having a bunch of groups of things and then figuring out how many things fit in by going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and sharing things out individually. So what we can do instead is we can do it in groups. So we can still have our 7 groups. And again, as always, there are various ways to do this. You don't have to do exactly the same way that I'm doing it. And then we're going to share 5. We're going to count by 5s. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So I can share out 35. I've dealt with that. I know that I can do that. I can share in groups of 5, and that's fine, into 7 groups. Now I'm going to put 2 more in each group. So I'm doing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, sorry. So I've shared out 49 things. So I still have more things that I could do. I can share 1, or I could share 2. I could see if 3 works. I'm going to share another 2. So I'm going to count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And I sort of have this running tally over here where I'm adding them up, but I also could have done it like this. I could have counted 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and then 37, 39, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, then 51, 53, 55, 57, 59, 61, 63. So you could count up by those groups, even though we're not counting consistently by the same amount, that still works. And we got to 63, which is where we want it to be. So we divided 63 into 7 groups, and in each group there is 5 plus 2 plus 2, which is 9. So 63 divided by 7 is 9. And that's another strategy for doing division. All right. So what is our final assessment going to look like, which you do need to complete? It is not an exam, but a culminating assignment. So something that you can take home and work on your own time. It covers all of the 20 lessons. So you do need to complete all of the work, but it is open book. So you have access to your assignments, to the YouTube videos, to the IL booklet, to the Desmos calculators if you want to use calculator online, and also to Google Maps. So you can access that at other things as well, but those are the things that we've used that you can use. It is not timed, but it will have a deadline. So, the deadline technically is tomorrow, June 10th. If you've been in communication with me, I am willing to extend that to next week if need be, but you got to communicate with me. The structure is likely unfamiliar, as it is not just answering questions directly. You need to do some thinking and application of our strategies and of your understanding. So it might engage your brain in a slightly different way. Okay, let's look at our last 5 lessons. Number 16, vehicle costs. So we know that whenever you buy a vehicle, yes, there is the cost of the vehicle, which we talked about in previous lessons, but then there's the expenses of running a vehicle. So you need to pay insurance, you need to pay the car payments, but then you also need to do oil changes with oil filters, tires, registration, gasoline, oil, wiper fluid. Those are things that you just constantly need to put in, air filters, and then any replacements of parts or repairs. Some of these costs are monthly, others are yearly. Some things you do every year, some things you might do every couple of years, some things you need to do every month. Then we have fuel efficiency. So this is also a cost in terms of how fuel efficiency refers to how far you can travel on a certain amount of fuel. So something being fuel efficient means that it's good at traveling longer distances on a smaller amount of fuel. So basically anything listed less than 6 liters per 100 kilometers or more than 16.5 kilometers per 1 liter is considered to be pretty good fuel efficiency. In Canada, we do this by liters by 100 kilometers, but in the States, they do this by miles per gallon. I don't know about other places in the world. In Canada, all over the world, gas prices are rising significantly. So having a vehicle that is fuel efficient means that you'll be having to spend less money to travel the same distance. Currently, in my household, we own a van and a small car. And so we are consciously choosing, though the van is a little bit more comfortable as it is larger, it costs significantly more to put gas in it. So with the rising cost of gas, we are choosing to use the car more frequently for longer trips than we used to, because it's just more cost efficient. Okay, so let's look at the support questions. On page on page 4, number 1, the following are car expenses for Kristen. The following are car expenses that Kristen incurred for 1 year. So $41.56 in oil, $48 in wiper fluid, $1,129.43 in insurance, $175 a month for gas, $12 for an air filter, $327.18 for a monthly car payment. The total that she drove in that year was 21,395 kilometers. So how much did Kristen spend on her car in 1 year? So most people just want to add all these up, which, yes, we do need to add them all up. But first, we need to convert our monthly costs to yearly. We have 2 costs that are monthly. They're only counting for 1 month. So we need to multiply them by 12. So for gas, we have $175 times 12 equals something. And for car payments, we have $327.18 times 12. So we need to figure out what those are for our yearly costs. So going to our calculator, 175 times 12 is 2,100. And 327.18 times 12 is equal to $3,926.16. So then we are going to add all of these plus the yearly costs that we just calculated. So I'm not writing them out to save time, but I am putting them all into my calculator. So you need to make sure when you're doing this that you know if you're talking about yearly costs or monthly costs and what you're trying to figure out. So see, I just put 175 for my yearly gas costs, which is not true. So I had to erase that and put in the 2,100, which is going to be the yearly cost that we put into gas. So mistakes happen. You just got to be paying attention and catch them. So yearly, it costs Kristen $7,257.15. Okay, so B, how much did it cost per month to run her car? So for this, it is best to find your yearly cost and then divide that by 12. We've already found the yearly cost. We're just going to divide it by 12. That gives us $604.76. Is the cost that Kristen has to budget for per month. What is the per kilometer cost of her car, of running her car? So we know that in 1 year she drove 21,395 kilometers. So we're looking for what is the per kilometer cost. So this is an awkward way of saying this, but what is the cost per kilometer? Per kilometer means that we're dividing by kilometers. So we're looking for costs of money per kilometer. So that means that we're going to do our yearly amount because we know our yearly kilometers or yearly distance divided. So our yearly dollar amount divided by a yearly distance amount. So we do that, $7,257.15 divided by 21,395 kilometers gives us 34 cents per kilometer. So for every kilometer that she drove, she had to put 34 cents into her car to maintain it and to use it. All right, Lester needs a new muffler. This is number 4. Sorry, number 4 on page 6. Lesher needs a new muffler installed on his vehicle. He purchases a new exhaust system for his car that costs $487.26. How much is this exhaust system per month if it lasts for 10 years? Okay, so we want to figure it out per month, but it's over 10 years. So are we just dividing by 12? No, we are dividing by 12 times 10, which is 120 months, right? Because each year has 12 months in it. We have 10 years, therefore it's 120 months. So we're looking for the exhaust system per month. So we're going to do, so per month, we're dividing by the months. So we're going to do, again, cost per month. So we're having $487.26 divided by 120 months equal to. So understanding how to interpret the question is really, really important to figure out which way you're dividing. So $4.06. So for every month that he drove on this exhaust system, it was $4.06 that he had to invest into that new exhaust system. How much is this exhaust system per kilometer if he drives 192,000 kilometers with it? So again, we're looking for cost per kilometer this time. So we're going to do our cost, which is $487.26. Sorry, $487.26, not thousand, divided by 192,000 kilometers. So again, we are just dividing that. And that is 3 cents per kilometer. And that's how we do those questions. Okay, calculate the amount of fuel that is needed. A, traveling 118 kilometers with a vehicle that uses 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. So how we figure out how much fuel is needed is we do our traveling distance, 118 kilometers, times 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. So if you remember about units, because we are timing something by kilometers and dividing it by kilometers, those units are going to cancel off, which means that we're just left with liters. So that can be one way that can help you make sure that you're doing the right thing. And then we just calculate that. So we have 418 times 7.6 divided by 100 is 31.77 liters. So 31.8 liters of fuel are needed for that vehicle to drive that distance. So the same for this, the second one. I'm not going to do it just to take time. So we're going to do a cost of fuel question. So we're going to do B. So if it's 61 liters at a cost of $1.03 per liter, so the same way we do 61 liters times $1.03 per liter, right? So the liters cancel off. We are left with just dollars. So we're doing 61 times 1.03 equals $62.83. That's how much it would cost to buy that much fuel, 61 liters of fuel. Okay, so the next one's where that last one we're going to skip just for time. So lesson 17, we're going to look at traveling distances. So we did this in two ways. We estimated distances on maps. So we talked about how our distances generally are not in a straight line. So sometimes we need to estimate to figure out how far it is between the two places. And there's a scale on a map. When you're looking at a paper map, or even if you're looking at a digital map, they generally will still have a scale that shows you what area is being represented So the distance represented on the map in relation to real life distance. So this is really helpful if we're calculating or estimating distances. So if we are doing this, there are 5 steps to figure out this distance. So you measure the scale on the map and write it as a ratio. So saying that 1 centimeter equals 100 kilometers or whatever it is. Then you use a ruler to measure the distance from the 2 places that you are traveling, that you're interested in. And generally you measure straight-ish distances. So if you need to, if there's a big curve, then you measure to the curve and then from the curve. Then you add the estimated distances all together, write the equation with the scale and an unknown x to represent the distance in kilometers that you're looking for, and then use x to solve using cross multiplication and dividing, which we went through in this lesson. Go back to it if you are confused how to do it. Then we also estimated distances using technology. You can use the internet to find distances pretty straightforward, and it will generally give you estimated driving times and directions as well. One site the one that we looked at is Google Maps, which is, from my knowledge, the most common source to use. So let's do some of this practice of these questions. So support question number 2 on page 18. Find the unknown distance in kilometers represented by X. So this is if you've already done your measurement of your scale. So your scale is 10 millimeters represents 6 kilometers. And you're trying to say you've measured and it's 53 millimeters on your map. You're trying to figure out how long that distance is. So with cross multiplying and dividing, we're going to multiply these things across. So 6 times 53 equals 10 times x, so 10x. So using our calculator, 6 times 53 is 318. It is equal to 10x. So then divide both sides by 10 to get x by itself. So 318 divided by 10 is 31.8. So the distance in kilometers is 31.8 kilometers is that you would have the equivalent. Okay. And then B is the same thing. You're cross multiplying and dividing. It's so 25 times 73 equals 5 times x. So 25 times 73 is equal to 1,825 equals 5x. Divide both sides by 5. Of course, there are slightly different ways to do this. You don't have to do it exactly the same way that I'm doing it. 365 is what that equals. So it's 365 kilometers is the distance, the unknown distance. Yeah, there's different ways. You don't have to do exactly the same way, but you should get to the same answer. Okay, so then using number 3 on page 19, using the map provided below, find the distance between each of the towns or cities. So to do this, you need to have, we have this map. You can see here is the scale where this distance is 5 kilometers. So we're going to need to use a of some sort. I'm just going, I forgot to get my ruler. So I'm just getting another program that will help us out. This is hard to do on the computer without a ruler, just because things. So I have another tool that I can use. So I wanted. That's what I wanted. Here we go. So I've got my ruler. I'm gonna make it smaller. It is okay that this is not exactly because I'm using a digital ruler. It's okay the fact that I can make it smaller. But it's just for convenience. that I made it smaller so it's easier to see. I should put this back. There we go. Okay, so we can see that 5 kilometers is equal to about 30 millimeters on my ruler. So that is my scale. So 5 kilometers equals 30 millimeters. And then I'm going to use my ruler, and it says from Pickering to Oshawa. So I have to find where Pickering is. Over here is Pickering. Here's Oshawa. Now there's a bit of a curve here, but I'm going to ignore the fact that there's a bit of a curve, and I'm just going to measure. I got to make sure that I'm measuring in millimeters because that's what my scale is. And then let's see, it's kind of hard to see. So it looks like it is about 113 millimeters. So for my ratio, 113 millimeters is what I have. And I'm looking for my X. So again, I do my cross multiplying, right? So I do 5 times 113 is equal to 30 millimeters times X. So then we have, sorry, I've got lots of things overlapping right now. Equals 565. That divided by 30 is equal to 18.8 kilometers. So that is the distance from Pickering to Oshawa is about 18.3 kilometers. And that's how you do it for the rest of them as well, is again, you use your ruler, you measure the distances, and then you practice the ratio. I'm not going to do more just because it's a bit of a time, it takes a bit of time to do it. So, but you can see that you just take, these are fairly straight distances. If, I'm trying to look to see if there's one. So from Oshawa to Hampton, so here we wouldn't just measure from Oshawa to Hampton straight across, like as the crow flies, as the bird flies, as they say, because that doesn't make sense. There's not a road that goes like that. So you'd have to measure in parts. So you'd measure sort of this distance from here to here, and then you would measure this distance because that's a pretty big curve going down, and then you would measure this distance to get here, and then you would measure up from the highway to Hampton. Or you could go a different way. You could go up and over. That could be fine too. You can measure up straight from here and then go straight across. Both ways would be fine. So that's how you use a ruler and a scale to measure distances. So I'm just going to put my ruler away. And what do we got next? Use Google Maps to find the distance and estimated travel time between the following destinations: Sioux Lookout and Pickle Lake, and Thunder Bay and Ignace. So going to Google Maps, we just type in Google Maps. I always search it up. I never remember what the thing is. And then you put in your search. So say we're going from Sioux Lookout to Pickle Lake. So I put in Pickle Lake, where you're going to, and then I want directions. So then I start my choosing point. If I were to put in Sioux Lookout first, and then I could just switch them, and that's fine. So then they tell me that the distance is, the fastest route is, the distance is 263 kilometers, which takes 3 hours and 37 minutes approximately. So if you wanted to go a different route, they give you that as well, but the most direct route is 3 hours and 37 minutes, which is 263 kilometers. And that's how you use Google Maps. Okay, lesson number 18, planning a trip. So for this lesson, we really talked about what are the things to consider. So you need to consider the travel distance. So how far can you travel in a day? Do you have kids or pets to consider? Or even just your own health, or what is functional for you to do? So don't push yourself. It is safest to take frequent breaks. And is the goal of it to get to the final destination or to enjoy the journey? So are you going to stop along the way because that is what the adventure is? Or are you going to push through and just drive and just get to where you want to go? I've experienced both things, where I really just want to get to where I'm going, or that I want the adventure of the trip. So you want to plan that when you're think about that when you're planning your trip. And then you need to think about fuel costs, accommodations, both while you're on the road and at your final destination. You need to think about food in terms of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks, whatever makes sense for your family, your household. You think about taxes, because remember, there's different tax rates in different provinces. So you want to be aware of that, as some things will seem more expensive in some places in the country because of their taxes are higher. And then you want to plan if you're planning entertainment or not. So you would decide again what makes sense for your trip. But you want to consider admission costs and souvenirs. Or what sort of spending are you doing outside of that when you are planning a trip? So for lesson 18, there are no support questions. There are just walks you through the key questions, but let's do a quick look if we're planning to go from Sioux Lookout to Toronto. So hopefully we spell it right. So to go from Sioux Lookout to Toronto, when you search in Google Maps, they give you 3 different options. Today when I searched, sometimes it's different. They give you one option, this straight line that goes over the lake, that is a flight. It has a little airplane. So they tell you that it's a 3-hour and 45-minute flight. It is not a direct flight. So, yes, it's a flight. So yes, so that is one thing that they give you. Another option that they give you is to use a train. And so they take the train, they give you public transportation, so you can take the train to Sudbury, and then from Sudbury, they transfer you to a bus to get to Toronto. And then the third option they give you is a car route where you can go. Yeah, so there are different car, so you can select, like you can say you're driving and then that you're not going to fly or take the train. And then they just show you that option, which then you can also alter if you wanted to go the north route. You can do that. If you want to go through the States, you could do that too. They tell you the different routes. This one, how do you go over the water? This includes a ferry. So it tells you this route includes a ferry. So I'm assuming that the ferry is here through Lake Michigan because that is going straight across the water. Anyway, so you have that option to like tweak what your route is. So this one, because I put a spot somewhere, then it's like making me go in really funny directions. So I think that has cleared all of my funny wiggling. And then you can also add your destinations. So if there's somewhere so you think you're going to stay in Wawa, which is often where we stay, you want to make sure that you move your destinations. So from Sioux Lookout to Wawa, then to Toronto, because otherwise you're going all the way to Toronto and then back to Wawa is what it's planning. So it has done that now that I've put in my different locations. I'm starting in Sioux Lookout, going to Wawa, then going to Toronto. It's telling me that it's 18 hours and 43 minutes of driving time, which is straight driving time. So that's 1,774 kilometers. I've driven this route a fair number of times. It always takes me longer than 18 hours and 43 minutes. Then here it can tell you the details. So it says, one, your destination is in a different time zone because the time zone changes from Northwestern Ontario to Southern Ontario. And this route has tolls. There are tolls down here. So if you don't want tolls, you can avoid tolls, and then it's going to give you a slightly different route. The tolls really is just down inside of Toronto, so it's fairly simple. It doesn't really change anything if you avoid the tolls. If you want to avoid highways, you can do that, and then there it puts you on a different route that is a bit longer and it's going to take you a bit more time. And then you can then you break down and it shows you the different pieces. So it tells you from your stops from Sioux Lookout to Wawa, it tells you how long it's going to take you and the distance. So it's 9 hours and 12 minutes, and it's going to take you 851 kilometers to get from between those two places. And then to go from Wawa to Toronto, it's 9 hours and 32 minutes, which is 920 kilometers. So it shows you that information for general planning as well. So that's how you can use Google Maps to sort of plan. You can, of course, do more stops along the way and get more information. You can zoom in and get more information about where places are. If you're like, that driving 9 hours, 2 days in a row just seems like too much, and you want to decide to stop somewhere else, zooming in can sometimes give you some options, and you can then add that into your list. So, or if you're just like, if you're looking down, you're like, oh, I don't actually want to come in through Western Toronto. I'm actually going to Toronto, but I'm actually going to Scarborough. Then you can change that so that you don't have to drive through Mississauga to get and Etobicoke to get to Scarborough, which doesn't make any sense if you know anything about Toronto. So that you'd be like, oh no, I actually want to go over here or whatever. You don't want to. You decide. So there's lots of flexibility that you can do within Google Maps, which is pretty great. Okay, so now let's look at lesson 19, reading charts and schedules. So here we looked at buses, trains, and planes. It's really, really important to be able to understand the charts and schedules when you are traveling by these methods, because they are how they communicate information. So they communicate the costs as well as your time travels and where you need to be for things. So it's essential in order to be successful in traveling in these distances that you are able to understand these charts. So things to consider while you're looking at these charts and schedules is that the departure times and arrival times may be in the 24-hour clock. So you may see things like 15:35, and that is 3:35. So you need to be able to convert from the 24-hour clock to what makes sense to you. The times are based in local time zones. So if you are crossing time zones, which could be, there's lots of time zones in Canada, that just is your duration might seem weird based on how far we're going. I was just speaking with someone about who was in Thunder Bay last week, who was saying that flying from Thunder Bay and to Dryden, and it's a 45-minute flight, so he would arrive back in time. So like he would leave at 10 o'clock and he'd arrive at 9:45 because the time change from between Thunder Bay and Dryden is an hour and the flight is only 45 minutes. So that's just, things that seem weird to pay attention to. The prices are maybe per person, or they could be for the whole trip. They could just be per one way. They could have additional fees. So that's all things to be paying attention to. There are taxes based on the local province or territory. So your price might seem more expensive going from one direction to the other direction because if the taxes are different in the province. And then be cautious of stops and transfers and layovers, as that might add to the complexity of your trip. So you just want to be conscious of it and be able to make those decisions for yourself. So let's look at support questions on number 1 on page 36. So use the schedule below to answer the following questions. What is the departure time from Oshawa and arrival time in Toronto on July 27th, 2005? I know these are old. Okay, so one, we're talking about Via Rail, and looks like. I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is going on? Why are we? So it's like, so really what we're doing is the whole trip is that we're going from Oshawa to Winnipeg. But first we have to go from Oshawa to Toronto and then from Toronto to Winnipeg on the train. So I was really confused. And I'm like, well, we're going from Oshawa to Toronto. Why is it talking about Winnipeg? Because really we're going to Winnipeg. We're going from Oshawa to Winnipeg, but we have to stop and transfer in Toronto. So the departure time from Oshawa is 16:11. So 16:11, which is 4:11 p.m. Here, so that's when we're departure time. So the arrival time in Toronto, we look, it arrives at 16:46. So that's 4:46 that arrives in Toronto. B, what is the departure time from Toronto and arrival time in Winnipeg on July 27th, 2005? So we are looking at we're departing Toronto at 9. And so 9, that's 9 a.m. And then that's the departure time. And the arrival time in Winnipeg is 15:45. So that's 3:45 p.m. And then if we see here, it says on July 29th, which is because it takes 2 days to get there on the train. I'm super confused because we're going from Oshawa to Winnipeg, but the train from Oshawa to Toronto departs after the train from Winnipeg departs. So I don't get how we can do that unless this is talking about a departure time on July 28th, but it doesn't tell us that we need to stay overnight in Toronto. So this seems really confusing to me, but that's the answer to the question. Number 2, use a schedule from the previous page to answer the following questions. How many people are traveling with this itinerary? So we're looking at WestJet. So we're talking about flights. And again, when I was looking at this, I was like, I can't tell. It doesn't tell me. I'm guessing one person from the rate, but this is the chart that's on the previous page and I can't tell. So that didn't seem super helpful. Again, these things I need to update. What is the total cost of the trip? So if they are choosing between these fares, again, for 214 seems to be the ones that are being indicated. I must be looking at the wrong chart. I'm going to skip this one. I feel like it just doesn't make sense. Number 3, use the schedule chart below to answer the following questions. How many buses leave Montreal from Toronto? So we're looking at the Greyhound buses from Toronto to Montreal. We look and we see, okay, so we have a 12:01 a.m., 7 a.m., 9:30 a.m., 11:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m., 4:30 p.m., 6:30 p.m. So that looks like these are all leaving on the same day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 buses that leave. Which bus schedule is the quickest? So we're gonna look at duration. So we have 8 hours, 8 hours, 7 hours. So this one's looking pretty good. 8 hours, 7 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours. So we're looking at the 7-hour ones. So there's 2 that leave for that take 7 hours and 50 minutes. So the bus numbers are 6210 and 6212 are the 2 buses that are the fastest. How much is saved if the ticket is purchased 7 days in advance instead of as a walk-up standard? So we look up here at the fares. So if you buy it 7 days in advance, it is $43.90, whereas if you buy it the same day, it's $85.75. So we do $85.75 takeaway, $43.90, and that would be how much you're saving. Why is there a 1 in the transfer column? So that would tell me that there's 1 transfer. My guess is that you'd be transferring in Ottawa. I could be wrong, but so that means that there's 1 transfer that you need to do. All right, and our last lesson, lesson number 20, comparing modes of transportation. So a car versus public transportation is what we looked at first. So if you have access to public transportation, there are many benefits. If you are visiting a place with public transportation, as in Northwestern Ontario, we don't have public transportation other than in Thunder Bay, as far as I know. So the internet really gives you lots of information. We went in detail. We went through looking at the Thunder Bay system, the Winnipeg system, and the Toronto system, just to sort of give a variety of experiences. Things to be conscious of are the cost of the fare, so how much it costs to travel on the bus or on the public transportation. So you could do it in cash, which generally you need exact cash. You could have tickets or tokens that you can buy somewhere else. There could be digital cards. There could be other passes that I don't know. Each place is really different. The age of the traveler is important to note. In some places, if you're under 12, so you're traveling with kids, kids are free. If you're a senior, you might get a reduced price. And how do you actually pay? Do you pay the teller? Like, do you pay the driver? Is there like a cash box or something that you put your money in? Do you have to buy tickets somewhere else? That's all stuff to consider before trying to get on public transportation. And then it's also important to figure out what the stops look like. So how do you find them? How do you know where to catch a bus or catch a train? How do you get on and off? Do you need to like wave the bus driver down? Streetcars in Toronto don't pull over to the side of the road, they stay on their tracks. So then you need to walk into the road when it stops. So that's very possibly unnerving if you're not used to it. What are the names and numbers for your routes that you're trying to travel on, and the stops, so that you know where to get off, which is also pretty important. And then we also looked at renting a vehicle as an option. So that booking a car reservation is usually a pretty low risk proposition. So something that's pretty easy to cancel. You do need a driver's license and a credit card. It's really important to respect pickup and return times. And it's a good idea to do that during operating hours, not dropping it off after hours, just in case anything goes wrong. It's important to inspect your vehicle before you get into the car and note any damage. It's a good idea to reject pricey extras. They probably are not worth it. Fill up your gas tank before returning it, because they're going to charge you extra if you don't, and record any damage that happens while it's in your care so that you can report that back. All right, so here is our support questions number 1 on page 44. Sherry is thinking of using public transportation when she goes to school in Ottawa. A monthly bus pass is $73.50. She thinks she will go out twice a month and pay $50 for taxis each time she goes out. She also thinks she'll spend about $750 on a trip home that she has to pay for. What is Sherry's annual cost for using public transportation? So we have monthly bus. So annual cost means yearly, right? That's what we're talking about. So that's important to remember. So we have monthly bus pass, which is $73.50 times 12. We need to figure that out. She's going to go out twice a month and pay $50 for taxis each time. So that's $50 times 2. And then cost for a trip home once is $175 times 1. So then, $73.50 times 12 is $882. So we need to add all of these up together for annual cost. So 882 plus 100 plus 750 is equal to $1,732. So that is her annual cost in public transportation. So what is her monthly cost? So we're going to take our annual cost and we're going to divide it by 12, because yeah, she's not traveling every month home to pay that big chunk, but she wants to save for it. You want to budget. So $144.33. If she budgets $144.33 every month for her traveling costs, then she'll be able to cover her costs for the year. Number 2, Wally sees a third option for renting a car at the airport, national car rental. I think the cost of renting this vehicle for 7 days if he drives 400 kilometers. So it's a Suzuki Swift and it's $38.99. And we're going to do that for 7 days. So we need to multiply that. Then there are, so plus $15 for taxes and fees for each day times 7. And he gets 350 kilometers free. So that means that, but he drives 400 kilometers. So he has an extra 50 kilometers times 0.15. And he has insurance to do $23.95 times 7. So that's a bunch of little things that we need to calculate. Instead of doing each of them individually by 7, I actually probably would add up the things that we need to do per day. So the rental car, $38.99 plus the taxes and fees of 15 plus the insurance of $23.95 is equal to, it's actually going to cost him $77.94 a day. So times that by 7 instead of doing each of the individual parts. So that's $545.58. So plus the overage charge for kilometers. So 50 kilometers times 15 cents, $7.50. So in total, it's going to be $620.58. So you can do it out separately, or you can do it all together. Which of the 3 car rentals is the best option? They're connecting it to the examples that they did. So for the one that we did, it's $620.58 for the 7 days. For budget rental, it's $402.59 for the 7 days. And for express rental cars, it's $385.79 for the 7 rental days. So enterprise rental car seems to be the cheapest. If that's what your goal is, that's what I would suggest that you use. Okay, and that's a wrap. That is our course. So as always, connect with me if you have any questions and you need any support to wrap up your final projects and your final lessons. Please reach out at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or 1-800-667-3703. Email me at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or connect with me through Facebook at B-Slate Wahsa. Remember, all of our lessons are up on YouTube at B-Slate Wahsa under a playlist MEL3E, so you can find them all there. Thanks so much for joining me and for the course. I hope you have a great day. Miigwech.